Why did you want to bring him in for a workout?
We brought in, like I said, we brought in tons of people for workouts, and if there's an opportunity to improve the team, we said it from day one that we would look at every opportunity, and he's not the first player that we looked at, not the last one.
Josh McDaniels with a very casual, reasonable, plausible explanation for the decision earlier this week by the Las Vegas Raiders to bring in free agent for 5+ years, Colin Kaepernick, for a workout. We'll be talking about the reaction from Thursday to the Wednesday workout over the course of the next 2 hours and much more. It's the Friday of Memorial Day weekend. Bad news dump coming this afternoon, baby. I can feel it in the air already. NFL's got something cooking up to slip through our collective five-hole as we focus on the weekend to come. Peter King is here, as he typically is on Friday. Good morning, Peter. Great to see you. How's everything?
Everything is okay, Mike. I was fascinated when I heard that Josh McDaniels was going to be talking on Thursday. My first thought was, is he going to pull a Belichick and say nothing to see here? Or is he going to say, yeah, it was really good to get to know Colin a little bit. And boy, I'll tell you what, he's still got some game and blah, blah, blah. And it was the former.
But, in that response that he gave, like, hey, no big deal, we do this all the time, that kind of underscores how wrong it is that it took 5+ years for Colin Kaepernick to make his way into that avenue of, yeah, we work out guys all the time. Because they do. They all do. We see the reports that come out, especially during the season. Every Tuesday, Giants have 10 guys in, Ravens have 7 guys in, Steelers have 6 guys in, lather, rinse, repeat, over and over. Hundreds of guys over the course of a given year are brought in for a workout, but nobody wanted to touch Colin Kaepernick because it's a very simple analysis. Very simple. If we do business with him in any way, shape, or form, we potentially risk activating that fringe of our fan base that will huff and puff and maybe blow our house down a little bit because they hate Colin Kaepernick. That's why it's happened. Whether there was collusion or whether the 32 teams decided independently, without any coercion or coordination from the league office, to stay away from Colin Kaepernick, that's why they did it. They made a business decision based upon the idea that we got people that hate this guy, even though he didn't do anything wrong, even though he didn't break any rules, even though everything he did was fully within his rights. People out there who want to push back on me will still refuse to accept he did nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. If we're going to care about the Second Amendment, we got to care about the First Amendment. He did nothing wrong. And it still took him 5+ years to get a chance to show up and throw the football and demonstrate what he can do, Peter. It sickens me that it took 5 years to get to this point.
Yeah, and look, the bottom line question now, and I saw some stuff. What do we need Colin Kaepernick for? We got Derek Carr. Well, this is not about replacing Derek Carr. This is basically about saying, is Colin Kaepernick at age 34 better today as an option than Nick Mullins or Jarrett Stidham? That's the question that everybody should be asking. Everybody should be looking at the backup quarterback on the team that they follow and just say, hey, look, it might be that he's not better, that 5.5 years is a bridge too far. But don't think of Colin Kaepernick as the guy who's coming in to replace the starting quarterback. That is, unless you're in Carolina or Seattle or whatever. And don't have an absolute rock-solid starter. Derek Carr is not going to be replaced. And the only way that Colin Kaepernick would play and play significantly if he signed with the Raiders, quite honestly, is if Derek Carr gets hurt or goes into a slump that he's never had in his NFL career. So everybody needs to sort of calm down about his role. His role is not to come in as the 2nd or 6th or 9th most important player on your team. His role is to come in as the number 2 guy on the depth chart, and then we see what happens.
Of course, we know some teams regard that number 2 guy on the depth chart as one of the top 15 most important players on the roster, a la the Philadelphia Eagles, because they once rode that guy to a Super Bowl championship just 5 years ago in Nick Foles. And you're right, Peter, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the Carr situation. Before we get to that, though, the reports coming out of the workout on Wednesday, and who knows what to really believe there, because, again, the Raiders now following the Patriot way aren't necessarily going to be the shining example of transparency when it comes to information, but reportedly impressive. Arm strength and conditioning stand out. Well, the arm strength isn't going to go away after 5 years of not playing. Right. You still have the same arm that you would have had. At age 34, he should still be able to throw it the way that he threw it at 29. And the conditioning will stand out. Well, if you're working out 2 to 3 hours a day every day to keep yourself ready, I mean, yeah, you haven't played football, you haven't put on a helmet, you haven't been out there in full contact, full action, reading defenses, getting experience that way. Chris and I talked about that yesterday, Peter, the idea that he would be, if he'd been playing all along, right now in that sweet spot where he still has his physical skills and he's got years of seeing defenses, reading defenses, making pre-snap looks, making determinations, teams trying to fool him. He's lost 5 years of that experience, but still, his arm strength and his conditioning should stand out because the guy's been busting his ass for 5 years waiting for this opportunity.
You know, and the other part of it is, Mike, if you just look at, and look, I watched him, I watched a lot of the tape from that Michigan workout that he had at the Michigan spring game, whenever that was, a month or so ago. And you know, there's no question whatsoever that he still has the ability to move around very well, and he still has the arm that you need to have to play football in the NFL. He's been throwing over the last couple of years to several NFL receivers, all of whom, well, what else are they going to say? But all of whom, when asked, basically say that, man, he really is throwing the ball well. So, to me, Mike, this is about, in my opinion, okay, whether you want to take the potential, whatever the right word is, the potential storm clouds that come with this, okay? And here he is throwing the ball at Michigan. You know, it's really whether you want to take, the storm clouds. And I'm reminded of something that was said to me at the time when Colin Kaepernick, remember the time that the NFL arranged a workout and that he and the NFL went back and forth and he ended up just going to throw the ball at a local high school. And that was 2 years ago. And I remember at the time, one NFL above the pay grade of general manager, not who was considering, signing Colin Kaepernick, he said, look, for any team, it's going to come down to one thing. Are you okay with 2 weeks of sort of mania around him, of Anderson Cooper being over on the sidelines or Oprah Winfrey or what, are you okay with that? Or, and then, because I think in most cases, what will surprise people is that after 10 days or 2 weeks, it's almost all going to go away. And then you just settle into football. Hey, Colin Kaepernick is here. Oh, yeah, that was a story 2 weeks ago.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.